So activity 2, evidence-based classroom strategies for teachers. I'm looking at prevention. So in the context of classroom intervention support, prevention fits into the practices categories. The listed prevention categories entail supervision, opportunity, acknowledgement, and prompts and pre-corrections. So let's look at supervision, specifically active supervision in proximity. So as expected, this is your standard classroom supervision. It's recommended that while we're monitoring our students, we're prompting our students, actively scanning the space we're in, continuously moving around, and of course interacting, which covers respectful verbal communication, pre-corrections, non-contingent attention, and specific verbal feedback, not just the good girl, great work, awesome. It's not what we're looking for. Now, as I'm studying to be a primary school teacher, I've just recapped the elementary examples. If you're studying to be a high school teacher, hit me up and I'll change this around for you, but they're not really that different. So what would supervision look like in a primary school setting? Well, when students are working independently, we would scan and move around the room, as I mentioned before, checking in with our kids. During small group tasks, we would be frequently looking up and quickly scanning the room. So while we're talking, we're looking around as well. It's pretty standard. And then during activity transitions, we move among the students to provide proximity. So scan continuously to prevent problems and provide frequent feedback as students successfully complete the transaction. Don't just sit at your desk and go, guys, move. It's tempting, but it's not best practice. So what doesn't this strategy look like? Well, some non-examples include positioning yourself where you can't see in the entire room of space, although I'm sure sometimes that would be tempting. Predictability. We don't want to walk the same lap, the same classroom every day. It's kind of just like teaching autopilot, and it's not supervision we're aiming for under this framework. Remaining with a student or group of students to stop and talk for several minutes, or only interacting with the same specific student or groups of students every day is not what we're looking for. But personally, I think you can remain with a group of students if you position yourself properly and continue to scan the room while talking to your students, as we just mentioned before. Also, all of the listed empirical support and resources, the Louisville, I don't know how to say it, video was very helpful in spoon feeding me what supervision looks like. It also provided examples of pre-correction, prompting, specific praise, formative assessment, all that kind of stuff we're looking at in this unit. And I'd recommend looking at it if you've been wondering how those terms look in action. Otherwise, it's just a really time-consuming collection of videos. And the actual empirical support summary wasn't, that especially insightful. It simply stated that combining prompts or pre-correction with active supervision is effective across a variety of classroom and non-classroom settings, and obviously it referenced a study, but not really a helpful sentence. So the next part of the prevention puzzle is opportunity. So specifically, we should provide high rates and varied opportunities for students to respond. So the key strategy we're looking for is a teacher behaviour that requests or solicits a student response. So asking a question, presenting a demand. Opportunities for students to respond include, so in an individual group, small group questioning, use a response pattern to make sure that all students are called on. I don't know if you saw the video vault, I can't even remember what unit it was for, where the child answers the question and then they say number 6, and the number 6 correlates with another student and they have to answer the next question, so something like that. Choral responding, so all students in a class respond in unison to a teacher question. The most obvious example that probably isn't that good is, good morning students, everyone sings songs, good morning Miss Lola. But you could go a bit more higher order than that and look at students reading a poem out loud together or reciting their times tables together. And then finally, there's non-verbal responses. So response cards like such. They're not really response cards, so student response systems and guided notes examples. Thumbs up if you agree with the character's choice in our story. Simple. So we've touched on a few instances on creating opportunities in the classroom, but what is a non-example of it? We want to avoid long teacher monologues at the front of the room that don't stop to prompt students for questions, like a lecture, which is not appropriate for a primary school setting. Or my pet hate as a student, avoid getting students to summarize a textbook chapter for homework. That's completely different to the task you set in class, where you got everyone to work silently on something and didn't bother engaging students. That is not what opportunity looks like. So what then will this approach result in your classroom? Well, I'm glad you asked, because increased rates of opportunities to respond support student on task behaviour and correct responses while decreasing disruptive behaviour. So the teacher's use of opportunity to respond also improves reading and maths performance. And there were studies on that, but they weren't looked at. It was just like a sentence about it. So we're halfway through the content now, too much to go. And our next point is acknowledgement. Now, I'm sure you'll all remember the abundance of peer-wise questions about specific feedback being more effective than inherent praise to engage students, which is great news because acknowledgement is all about using behaviour-specific praise. So a key strategy with acknowledgement is employing a verbal statement that names the behaviour explicitly and includes a statement that shows approval, because using specific praise and other strategies lets students know that they're meeting classroom expectations. It's not always helpful just to say good work. Like, why is it good work? Are you just saying it's good work? Are you even watching what I'm doing in class? Like, look at me. Tell me what I'm doing good. So some consideration to keep in mind with these verbal statements that I'm going on about include the statement may be directed toward an individual group. So thank you for raising your hand. To an individual, not a group, or to a group. I'm very impressed at how well everybody has sat quietly while listening to my instructions for what to do next. Great work. You can also dish out your specific praise as you see the good behaviour unfold and be understandable, meaningful and sincere. So if you see someone being on task and being on task well, there's no point mentioning it 3 hours later after lunch saying, oh, it was really good when you did that before. Like, it's more constructive if you do it as it's happening or close to. So here's a quota to remember, 5-1. That is, deliver roughly 5 praise statements for every 1 corrective statement. And I feel that this is something that may prove challenging when you're a graduate doing crappy substitute positions until you land your full-time job, because I know how myself and students at my schools acted towards teachers, but that's an aside. So also consider student characteristics such as their age and personality traits when delivering behaviour-specific praise, and adjust accordingly. Like, not all students respond well to public praise, and that can be, not worth your while to do. So take that on board. So acknowledgement is kind of a 2-part approach though, because in addition to utilising behaviour-specific praise, there are several other strategies listed to acknowledge student behaviour. These are behaviour contracts, group contingencies, and token economies. Well, there's 3 examples. I'm sure you can invent something in your classroom. So behaviour contracts document an agreement between a teacher and a student about A, expected behaviour, B, available supports to encourage expected behaviour, C, rewards earned contingent on expected behaviour, and D, consequences if expected behaviour does not occur. I'm sure you all got that. Anyway, a behaviour contract in a primary school would see, for example, Ms. Gaines' students sign a class constitution at the beginning of the year. And this document specifies 1, the expected behaviour, so in this instance, be safe, respectful and responsible. 2, supports to be provided, so the teacher's going to give reminders, or like, as Lindsay's daughter said, a checklist maybe. 3, rewards, so in this classroom they're going to earn Friday fun time. And 4, consequences, which is very weak in this example. It just says try again for next week. So group contingencies. All students have the opportunity to meet the same expectation and earn the same reward. The award may be delivered to all students when 1 or few students meet the criterion. That's a dependent example. To all students if all students meet the criterion. That's an interdependent example. Or to each student if that student meets the criterion, which is an independent example of that. So I'm not sure if this approach is coercive, manipulative or brilliant, but an example of group contingencies in action is all students will hand in homework number 2 by the due date. If we meet this goal next Friday, we will play state bingo instead of having a formal test. I like that approach. So next up we have token economies. These are kind of like the tokens you get at Grill to donate to a charity when you get your burger. it's not a good example, but that's just what's in my head. So in token economies, we distribute a token. And the examples they're given are a pretend coin, a poker chip, points, on the board, tally marks, or a stamp, contingent on appropriate behaviour. And this thing that you give to your students is exchangeable for a backup item or activity of value to students at a later time. But I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea to hand out poker chips to students. I live in Victoria. Everyone's addicted to gambling. Not appropriate. So acknowledgement in a token economy would see a teacher saying something to the effect of, thanks to each student who worked quietly on the mathematics task for the past 10 minutes. That's responsible behaviour. Each of you earned a Starbucks to use in the school-wide store. When it comes to acknowledgement, it's easy to hand out stickers, make announcements of, wow, you guys rock, and have class favourites, but ultimately it's ineffective. And what I just listed there are all non-examples. So the listed empirical support regarding acknowledgement states that contingent praise is associated with increases in a variety of behavioural and academic skills. Behaviour-specific praise has an impact in both special and general education settings, so kind of across the board. Didn't really go into a gifted setting. And reinforcement should happen frequently and at a minimal ratio of 5 to 1 praise statements for every one correction. But we already knew that because I covered it before. Which brings me to the final part of my presentation, prompts and pre-corrections. Ignore my terrible nail polish. Put simply, this is the ability to make the problem behaviour irrelevant with anticipation and reminders. Before I start here, I think it would be a bit naive going in thinking you're going to have this skill. I think this is something that comes with a lot of experience, but that's just my opinion. So the key here is making sure we give reminders before the behaviour occurs, and that said reminder describes what is expected. So some points to keep in mind are prompts and pre-corrections are intended to be preventative, which means they take place before the behaviour response occurs. So it's not an after-the-fact reaction as for a teacher to make. So clarity is key here. The prompt must be understood by the student or else it is useless, and the student must distinguish when the prompt is present. So kind of obvious, make sure what you're saying is understood by the students or it's just a nothing statement. And which goes on to make your prompt specific and explicit, describe the expected behaviour and link it to the appropriate expectation, and teach and emphasise self-delivered or self-managed prompts. So how would this look in the classroom? Well, when class recommences after lunch, for instance, and a few students seem worked up, we could provide a reminder about raising our hands in class, as opposed to saying to a student who speaks out of turn, instead of calling out, I would like you to raise your hand. So this is after the fact. This example has completely missed the boat on preventative prompt strategies because it's responsive rather than preventative classroom management. Another example is reminding students that even though summer is over, we still need to wear our hats in the playground at all times. I'm a preschool teacher, and this is something kids really struggle with. We could even model this behaviour and wear a hat when we are outside the classroom with students. This is prompting the student on the correct behaviour through our words and our actions. Or alternatively, we could simply say no hat, no play and wonder why it's such a hard concept for students to grasp, which obviously is an instance of a non-example. So the empirical resources for this point were just the way I like them, succinct. They simply stated that delivering prompts and pre-corrections for appropriate behaviour results in increases in improved behaviour, and recommended using prompts during transitions to new routines and for routines that are difficult for students to master, which I think is an awesome idea. So I hope my summary has helped clear up what is meant by prevention in respect to classroom interventions and support.